Thanks for tuning in to the Medevac podcast, powered by the Robert Irvine Foundation, whose mission is to support and strengthen the physical and mental well-being of our nation's heroes and their families. I'm one of your hosts, David Reid.
And I'm your other host, Christian Meyers. Thank you for joining us today. If you are new at the Medevac podcast, keep in mind there's a price for the show. You have to share it with a friend or family member if you get something out of today's episode. And like always, you're going to get something out of today's episode. Our guest today is Chris Donohoe. He spent a little over 20 years in Army Special Operations from 97 to 2017. Recently transitioned out, and we're going to address some of those topics today. So thanks for joining us, Chris.
Yep. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, good to be here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Good to be here.
Awesome. So let's kind of dive into your military service. You were pre and post 9/11.
That's it. That's
so
it.
in special operations your entire career, so you got to really see that transitional period of what that looked like in that reformation of what special operations is today. So really kind of like a founding father in the new.
Yeah, well, hey man, I'll go with that. I don't know, quite as Washington, whatever. Yeah. Let's go with it. Kind of old school. A little bit old school at this point in my life.
It is old school, old man. Got it. No, no, that's incredible. So let's start off with what inspired you to join. I mean, it was peacetime during that time, quote unquote. Yeah. Was it family? Was it friends? What inspired you to do such?
So I was in college at the time. I graduated college in '97, and honestly, before my senior year in college, I had probably zero thought ever of joining the military. So didn't really come from a military background, not a military family. So it's kind of funny, around what's interesting is it's one of those things where, graduating college is kind of it's a bit of a crossroads event, or it's a bit of a kind of decision point or whatever. And probably early in my senior year, I started getting this little kind of thought or kind of impulse or just this nagging idea that I wanted to kind of do something a little bit, non-traditional, bigger. There was this idea that I wanted to take on some, kind of classic. Hey, I want to take on something big.
Sure.
Put myself against it and kind of see what happens, see if I've got what it takes. So clearly, this, special operations kind of came out of my radar. So that I had kind of that initial thought, and then I was a bit of a history buff at the time, to be honest. So enjoyed reading history, so I kind of picked up a different range of books, and there's really kind of two that I remember. One was like Bravo 20. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Yep. A bunch of Brits, the original, the first Iraq War, one of several. Go in, get compromised, and kind of their story of getting out. Pretty fascinating stuff. I mean, unbelievable when you're completely uninitiated to read these stories. And then honestly, another one was kind of some World War II stuff where I was just fascinated by. And I kind of wanted to touch it and understand about these guys, particularly these pilots that would basically go into these missions essentially knowing that half of them are going to die.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you just, when your biggest fear is, hey, man, I'm going to run out of beer money on the weekend or something, and you kind of read some of these stories, there's just something you kind of want to touch out, understand it. And, and I was kind of Midwestern upbringing, great parents and all that sort of thing.
That was a question I was definitely going to ask, and I could see Christian making the face as well, because we see a commonality between lots of special operations warfighters is troubled childhoods, right? And I'm sure you've heard.
Now, my parents would say I had a troubled childhood, but
that you were troubled, or
no. Listen, I was not anywhere near valedictorian or anything like that. I was a bit of an underachiever, I would say. The classic teachers are like, hey, he's got the ability, he's lacking in the initiative and commitment. So
yeah, do you think that's more of a direction? Like like in school, sometimes it's not for people, right?
Yeah.
You just need that proper outlet.
For sure. I mean, I just really wasn't that interested in school.
But you had graduated college, so your family.
Yeah, I got a little bit more serious when I got to college. I literally doubled my GPA in college from high school, which I'm not going to reveal what that was, but you guys can. Hey, it's only a 4.0 scale. So.
Out of 4.
So anyway, listen, I'm a late bloomer. I think a lot of special operations guys are kind of late bloomers for whatever reason.
Well,
that was the story.
You're looking for, you have a desire for something more, and a lot of guys are in that position. I find that they weren't challenged enough by school, so they were disinterested by it, which led to a lack of effort trying. Right?
100%, 100%. And I do think there's a lot of guys that that you know, we get into this later. We talked a little bit about before the podcast. There's this kind of you know, you reach a crossroads where a lot of guys, hey, should I take this on or shouldn't I? And you know, my comment is, I kind of thank God I did.
Yeah.
You know, and again, we can touch on that later, but
yeah. How many times do you run into people having, you know, they come up to you and say they see your service and they're like, wow, I just wish I did that.
Yeah. No.
I think there's just countless amounts of stories
100%.
of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the difference is you take the initiative and you make it happen for yourself. Yeah. So a lot of times, how often do you hear, I would never make that. I could never do that. And it's like, well, you haven't tried.
No, and it's true. It's true. I mean, it's amazing what you know, human beings are able to get comfortable with and eventually just take as a matter of course in their lives. I mean, culture's a lot, man. I mean, when you get into these cultures, the expectations, and then a lot of, you know, listen, a lot of people won't perform, but you know, when you're set against a very demanding culture and you have any ability at all, you rise to a bit of a different level. You discover things you discover things that you weren't aware that you were in a possession of. So yeah, some people sell themselves short, but listen, it's not for everybody. For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what was it for you that inspired you to really take that journey into some of the toughest military training in the world?
Yeah. So I had and again, I kind of read the books and I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I want to go for the ultimate. So I had an advantage. I had a buddy in high school named Jason, a really smart kid. He joined the Army right out of high school, and then he kind of went through 3-4 years. And then on his way out, he went to SFAS, and he became a National Guard kind of SF guy, Green Beret guy.
Okay.
So he was actually up in a college town, 20-30 minutes from me. And I said, hey, man, I called him. I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And I kind of told him what I wanted to do. And you know, it's funny, he used this phrase, it's like, well, you just kind of want to get out of your system, right? You kind of want to experience. And I said, yeah, you know, it's a good way to put it. He said, well, what you want to do, you probably should go try to be a ranger. Don't be an officer, because, you know, I had a degree and all these. Like, just do 3 years, kind of get it out of your system. Great organization. They'll definitely kick your ass right away, you know, and all this stuff. So it was great guidance. So that's kind of what I decided to do. I looked at the SEALs, and then Ranger just, hey, 3 years seemed to be a great option for me.
Is that was your intention, was to just do 3 years and
baby.
Call it?
Yeah, 3 years. And, you know, times 7 is what it turned out. Whatever, you know,
Yeah.
give or take.
A little longer,
Yeah, so tried to get a Ranger contract, couldn't. You know, classic kind of worked a drug deal. Hey, I know this guy, the recruiter, I know this guy, sign up, get there. Yeah, we'll get you in, no problem. So rolled the dice a little bit, kind of got to this holdover battalion or whatever, and I tell the guy, yeah, this guy told me there's this guy I need to talk to. He's like, no, I'm the guy that determined your fate. I'm like, all right.
I was lied to.
Yeah. So he ended up being a pretty good dude, and it turned out, man, I got a range contract, and so got into 275, so went to RIP and all that stuff, and then got to drive, which was kind of cool, man. I bought a car in Georgia and then drove all the way up to Seattle. It was kind of a neat experience.
There you go.
Yeah, and it was a good start to the journey.
Yeah.
So what year did you land at regiment?
97.
97.
Yep,
Okay.
97.
So you got there pretty quickly after graduating.
I did. Yep. Yeah. So 97. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm. And how did that time in look for you? I mean, was it everything you expected? Were you looking for a little bit more?
No, listen, man, I say the regiment raises the best soldiers in the world. And now there may be a couple outfits that argue with that, but it's an incredible place, man. I mean, you know, it's you know what the standards are. You know, people are maniacal about the standards, and they're very serious about enforcing them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, you know, it's the ultimate, you know, execute the basics. You got very intelligent people that are maniacally forcing these basics on new recruits and this sort of thing. And it's just, I mean, it's just a super high performing organization.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed the hell out of it. You know, a lot of it wasn't enjoyable.
Yeah.
But,
you enjoy it after the fact.
Yeah, I enjoy talking about it.
Yeah. Enjoy talking about
it. While it's happening.
Yeah.
So I'll tell one quick story on that. So it was pretty interesting. It's kind of, maybe a couple I won't spend a lot of time. But so when I got there was really nobody there. It was a bit of a ghost town. So what I kind of later find out is everybody's training up for JRTC. Mm-hmm. And So at the time, Stan McChrystal was our battalion commander, who obviously went on to much greater positions of authority in the military. So I show up, and this kind of, this guy at the company grabs, is like, hey, everybody's getting ready to go to JRTC. Get your crap together, and we're going to, get you caught up with them. They're kind of making their way. So I didn't know what the hell JRTC was. I'm like, yeah, fine. Everybody's kind of, anytime they're talking to me, they're yelling at me, and I'm just kind of, so I get along for the ride, and I catch up with my platoon, who, the guy running the platoon was Doug Pallister, who later ran the regiment on the enlisted side. So anyway, a couple of great leaders, and so we. What I later find out is, like, JRTC is essentially, it's a bunch of professional op four that are kind of used to winning, and Stan McChrystal had like another idea that we're going to actually kick their ass. So, I remember getting off the 5 tons after getting hazed the entire ride in. It's, just kind of good Ranger kind of jackassery or whatever. And get off the trucks, man, and we like start walking. So day one, I'm like, nobody's talking to me. I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm just like heavy ass shit on my back. Getting yelled at, go here, go there. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, day one, I'm like, it's kind of tough. Day 2, I'm like, holy shit, this is, these guys are. So like day 3, I'm, my feet are like hamburger.
You guys just walking
in
a straight line?
Yeah. Well, walking all over. Okay. I mean, not sleeping, carrying heavy stuff, hot as hell. And we're just walking, zigzagging all over, killing people. And I'm starting to think to myself, man, I don't know if I could do this for 3 years. I'm like, I'm pretty tough, but
day in and day out.
So I started getting inside my own head, and I'm like, man, it's gonna be a long 3 years. So I'll never forget it. So we, like, day 4, I'm like, we're on the LZ to get picked up, and this like E5 or E6 dude turns to me. It's like the first real human interaction I've had other than being yelled. He's like, hey man, you did a great job. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. I'm like, hey, thanks for the feedback, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was.
He should have, it could have gone a completely different route. Yeah. And we've all had those like NCOs who were just like, yeah, dude, typical day in the life. This is an easy day. And I would have probably said that.
Yeah. You gotta,
just crushed your dreams.
You got to beat guys down whenever you can. So anyway, that was my kind of introduction, to Ranger battalions, which is great, man. I mean, just super high standards, hard as nails, kind of no quit. So
it creates a great soldier, though, upholding the standards and not letting it slide at all. That's something that's very noticeable by even Rangers after they're long out, right? They have a standard, and you should not fall beneath that standard.
It's pretty basic, It's kind of like the John Wooden stuff, man. You just teach guys to tie their shoes and start from there.
Yeah, I think what's so great about it too is and you nailed it, is establishing those baselines, those fundamentals on an expert level.
Yep.
And so often do we get bogged down by all the meticulous details of your training. Yeah. When it's so simple to just fall back on those basics, basic marksmanship, basic movements,
Yeah, for sure. And then, you've got these things like commander's intent and all that stuff, where you've got very intelligent people that can make snap decisions and stuff, but they've got a baseline, of performance. They can execute in their sleep. It's super impressive.
Yeah. And I think one of the most important factors is the all volunteer aspect.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
You have people that want to be there, whereas your regular army has people that don't want to be there at all, and they're shitty soldiers at the end of the day because of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it is a cult. I mean,
it is a cult.
It's a cult, and people laugh at that. And I
say that all the time.
It's true. Yeah, it's very true.
I take it a step further. It's the cult of manhood, man.
Yeah.
And people laugh at that like it's a silly term.
It's a rite of passage, right?
It is.
We've been doing this for generations.
Yeah. Listen, man, when you have to go to sustained years of war, and you're asking guys to go out and potentially get their arms and legs blown off on a daily basis. Logic and that sort of thing goes out the window. There has to be another driving force that gets people to buy into things.
A desire, at the very least.
Yeah. So it's very intelligent people, but it's
So, and I know we're going to dive into this, but I just can't help but ask is where is that driving force now? Like that's what we're finding an issue with in recruiting today.
Yeah.
I'm with you, man. I mean, I'm with you. Going back to the comment about, hey, it's kind of this crossroads event, and you nailed it. I know some very, very impressive guys. Some of them are investors in my company stuff that said that very thing. Hey, I wish I would have. It's my biggest regret. And so my first message would be to people, a lot of people are going to have that impulse. And I say act on it, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I know of probably nobody that looks back on their military career and doesn't consider it one of the best things they ever did for themselves.
Absolutely. It unlocks so many doors and avenues.
I mean, there's just a ton of things from personal development. If you don't want to be a face in the crowd, hey, we're all going to die at some point. You look back on your life. I mean, it's a great way to get started on and separating yourself from your peers, man. You're instantly different than people.
Yeah.
You're instantly interesting. And I mean, for real, I mean, you have experiences that are so, particularly in special operations, so far removed from the day in and day out lives of most Americans. It's just an incredibly invaluable experience.
And as you know, being a business owner, it's all about what is on your resume, right?
For sure.
And it's instant credibility when you have that. And we all know the people who didn't serve to their fullest potential. The shitty, shit bags. There's tons of them out there, right? Just because you're in the military. What's that? You and you. Yeah. But we all know these people, but still at the end of the day, when you say you signed that dotted line, there is a wall that comes down a little bit, right?
For sure, yeah.
And that's what it's all about in everything, is taking that wall down, and then you add other layers to it. I was in rescue, I was in special operations, blah, blah, blah. Now you start becoming a part of this brother and sisterhood, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
What I tell people, and this is my unpaid public service announcement for the Army, so I've kind of been asked to come in and talk to a couple of different entrepreneurship classes and some universities and stuff. And one of the best kept secrets, about entrepreneurship is what are the two things, I tell, hey, highly unlikely that Andreessen Horowitz or Sequoia is going to walk in your class and say, hey, man, I heard you got a great idea. Here's $10 million.
Yeah.
Probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
Not typical.
Unless you've solved cold fusion or something. So what you're going to have, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to go out and you want to raise some capital, you're going to have to start by getting some checks from some, high net worth investors and people that have run businesses, people that have built businesses from the ground up. And they're going to evaluate you really on one thing, hey, great idea, but do you have the grit, drive,
Yes.
and determination to see this through? That's it. I mean, guys that have built businesses, guys, ladies, whatever, that's what they're going to evaluate you on.
Yeah.
Above all else.
The tenacity behind it.
So that's one. The Army's pretty good at developing that in people.
Very much so.
Yeah. Two is you have to have a network. You have to have, when you start a business, you don't have any credibility. You've got to have this network of people that can open doors for you. One of the first businesses that I sold to, and we're under any, is one of the largest global investment banks in the world. One phone call, I'm in at this massive kind of table, people dialing in from all over the world because it's because of my military network.
Yeah.
One dude made one call, and he's like, hey man, you can trust this dude, bring him in. So again, entrepreneurship, you need to be convincing to people that are going to give you capital, and you need to have this network. And
but it showcases,
the Army gives you that. If you perform well, there's so much goodwill. People will do so many things for you.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it showcases the depth of the network too. Was this in this situation? Was this somebody that you had known previously, or
no? So it was
perfect.
It was an investor that knew a guy that was at West Point. And again, it's like these people know each other, and they're like, you vouch for him? Yeah, okay, good enough for me. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
All they have to hear sometimes is a name of someone that they trust.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we, as business owners, are also emphasize highly it's highly important to have a network. I mean, you don't even need to, like, running a business is a business, right? But having that network of people that open those doors for you,
100%, man.
Unlimited potential at that point. And two, you need that kind of groupthink mentality to step outside of the box you're in. Right. And that's another tool that we establish very well in the military is working with a team. Right. So now we could work with a team. We're tenacious, who have a no quit mentality, and we're not objective to meeting people. So, what's funny about us is we do not hire anyone that's not military, related in the military family. We have a military spouse and all this stuff. But for the most part, we could have someone that comes in with 20 years of apparel experience and says, hey, I came from X company. I'm ready to work for you guys. You're not qualified.
Simply put,
You're not
it's
qualified.
you know what you're getting, man. I mean, you know what you're getting. Now you've got to professionalize them and all that sort of thing.
And that is the trick, right? To button them up too, and we have to do that as kind of mentors as well. Give them the tools they need. But I would much rather, train them on the necessary aspects of that position and have the fundamentals that they have currently.
Hey, man, when you can go to bed at night as a business owner and people are working, you know that they're invested, invaluable. Invaluable.
It's something we don't have to worry about. I know if I give any of our employees a task, they're going to execute on it in an appropriate manner. If they don't know, they'll figure it out. That's the simple expectations.
And then we set the standard, and I think that's very established as well. As like, hey, and we've had this conversation as well. This is not the standard. This is where we need you to be. And if you can't hit the standard, then you can't be here. And it's the same concept, but when you have that baseline, now the expectation is that, and you have no issues outside of that. There might be mistakes along the way, but you could guide and mentor them
for sure
to overcome those as well.
I think, I think I listened to a couple episodes, and I think maybe you that mentioned one of the most sought after people in business is like a senior enlisted. Did I hear that from you or somewhere else?
Yeah, we were touching base off of that, and what I really said was sometimes I don't like to hire E7 and above, and definitely Colonel and above.
I'm with it. And listen, anytime you can bash officers, you need to. And I'm kidding. There's some incredible.
No, the problem is when we take a look at startups, you can't have a senior officer's mentality because you're too used to delegating, right? We've forgotten how to wear multiple hats. We do see a 60,000 foot view, but that is for a limited amount of people, right? The visionaries of the company. You don't want,
I'm with you. No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
So I want door kickers. That's what I want.
It's hungry guys. And again, if there's a transition period where they need some new skills and stuff, but if you can see them through that and bring all those innate things that were developed and bring that to bear with the right set of commercial skills, it's an unstoppable combination.
I mean the military teaches individuals how to be malleable, right? It truly forces them like shift and focus, shift your focus, rise to the occasion, like no matter what it's calling for, and you can shape the people into it very easily.
So I mean it is disheartening to see how much the military is struggling across the board to bring good people in. One, it's, hey, you need great people. We were talking about some of the threats, particularly China, that sort of thing. It's, it's real one. So we need great people, in the military. So it's unfortunate in that respect. And it's unfortunate. It's just such an incredible, opportunity for individuals that I think a lot of people just don't think of or are not capitalizing on. I mean, it truly, it's a significant departure from the trajectory of the life you would be on if you didn't choose to serve. Anyway,
I think you have to ask a why behind it too, right? What is the cause that's people are not interested in joining the military right now, and there are a lot of whys behind it, right?
There's too many negative aspects right now, and that's what we're seeing the balance for. And I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no, not at all. Yeah, you're totally right. There's a lot of different whys, whether it be political or what's happened with the war or what's going on with military leadership. Like there's a lot of issues right now that haven't been solved, and that, from my opinion, it lends the perspective that that's why people aren't joining.
I think there's some truth to that for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's in kind of en masse, right? Yeah. If you take it from an individual level, there's still so many positive benefits to making that decision, regardless of all the other things that are going on.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, you get senior leaders in the military that have they see administrations come and go, and of course they're apolitical. They've got to bend a little bit, but
yeah, of course,
we know these guys. I mean, these are guys and girls. These are good people. They're you get I still encourage people to join, regardless of the political climate, that sort of thing.
Well, at that point, when you slap on the enlisted rank, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's so far gone that
for sure.
But at the same time, it's like, what are we doing, right? We've seen our exfil from Afghanistan. We've seen Kabul happen, and now we have a generation of experienced veterans that are disgruntled.
Yeah,
very disgruntled.
Well, I mean, this is a classic like replication, copy and paste of Vietnam era, for because on the same aspect, we have a big social movement right now with the kind of like
individualist,
individualism, free love and that kind of thing. It's very representative of what happened in the 60s, right? We're seeing almost a copy and paste. We got people coming home from a long war that they didn't necessarily want to fight. The other half is about the free love and individualism, and it it will rein itself back in.
As the pendulum swings.
Yeah, of course.
But at this point, so people are seeing that. And I think that people are disheartened.
Yeah.
Especially, when you see your commander in chief is not able to execute, how does that instill confidence?
Yeah.
When we can't even formulate full sentences. So,
listen.
But it's the truth. It is not a dig or a negative connotation in any capacity. It is the simple fact of the matter. And true, I want to have, a belief in my leadership. And that's what we got to look at. But I want to rewind it a little bit to talk about you. And we see this so many times. And I talk about it as well as post-traumatic stress with a combat-oriented position and PTS with a non-combative or aspect. A lot of times when people are prepared for the combat and prepared for that unit, prepared for that capacity, we have an ability to compartmentalize a little bit better.
Yeah, prepare yourself.
So when you got out of the military, you had obviously a copious amounts of experience. How was that transition out for you? How was your mental health? Like, what did you do for yourself? What was the resources available for you? And the level of you had to have someone specifically dedicated to helping you guide through some of this.
So I was pretty damn fortunate in that, and you guys have thought about this a lot more than I have. When guys transition out, when I went from the Rangers and then got picked up in other special operations, the experiences there are just incredible. And you think about the language we use. It's like, hey, Chris got out. It's like you're in and then you're out. And when you're out, man, it's like
out of sight, out of mind.
I always use the reference, and I'll say it 1,000 more times. I know there's probably a compilation out there of this, but it's like Forrest Gump, where he's playing ping pong, and the guy comes in, he's like, "Here's your letter," and he's like, "I could leave." Yeah. And he just runs out the door.
It's like, so
That's exactly it.
I think about some of the day in, day out for a decade, what we were doing, incredibly exhilarating, incredibly rewarding. And then one day, you're out. So it's very, it's like tell me, hey man, rock stars had nothing on us. The only reason we didn't have groupies is because we were in a combat zone.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I'm just kidding. Nice job. You cultivated that in country.
There's a lot of PT belts floating around there. Huh?
Yeah. So anyway, man, it's so it's very difficult to leave that life behind. It just really is. And I think I kind of knew that. I think I was a little bit prepared for it. And I really wanted a clean break. I used to joke with guys. I'm like, hey man, you've got to let it go. I joke about some guys that 25 years and they get picked up by ground branch, and there's a couple of guys, well, you're on hit number 17,000. Come on, man. You're 63 years old.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
It's not going to change.
Yeah. So at some point you got to let go.
We have a great buddy, and he's still actively engaged. And I can say his name, Crawford.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This guy is still to this day just going strong.
Oh, yeah. And I got a guy too. And I'll just I'm like, yeah, it's like he's going to get an all-terrain wheelchair and be doing hits when he's like 80.
Yeah, one of those guys. It was like Billy Waugh was
and
like
the Robert Devine Foundation
Billy
will
Waugh,
help him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Billy Waugh was still doing like individual covert ops in Iran at like 84.
He came in and talked to us. Like
crazy.
right after 9/11. I'm like, this dude's older than my grandpa.
Like you've been in for 40 years already.
Anyway, listen, there's different strokes, different folks.
Yeah.
But, my thing was, hey man, you got to let it cut. You're going to have to let it go. It's just, it's healthy to have a clean break. So I try to do that, but easier said than done, clearly. But the huge advantage that I had was, I had this kind of classic founder moment where, and I'll just tell you the story real quick about my business. And so it's kind of like you guys talked about when I got out of Special Ops 2017, I'd gotten into Johns Hopkins Foreign Policy School up in D.C., SICE, great, one of the top in the world. And the reason I did that was because I was a bit disgruntled with some of the foreign policy decisions. Now, listen, it's hard, man. It's, you're dealing with humans. It's hard to make it's hard to get some of these things right. I acknowledge that. But nonetheless, as you mentioned, a lot of us were pretty frustrated. And then I started to hear some of these policy, potential policy decisions. I'm like, are we crazy? Have you all not been paying attention? We need to kind of think about approaching this in a little bit of a different way. It's like, it's 2017, man. It's like we're like 16 years into this, and it's, more of the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Only goes one direction.
Yeah. So,
well, same concept that we could kind of blanket this over is an officer's mentality versus an enlisted mentality, doctor versus nurse.
Yeah.
It's you have the lions and the lambs, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. So I get into, I'm living in Fayetteville and Fort Bragg, which is now Fort Liberty, and I got into this program at Hopkins. It was an executive program over about 18 months. It was foreign policy degree, and again, it's this access to Washington D.C. decision makers, that sort of thing. So great school, and a great opportunity to kind of get in the mix a little bit in the policy world. So I kind of tell everybody, this is my kind of classic pitch, like quickly dawn on me: wife, kids, school, job, no time for homework. So I'm on one of my kind of bi-weekly commutes up to DC from Bragg. Everybody knows this 5-hour drive, and I'm 50 or 60 pages behind on my reading, and I'm thinking to myself, why in the hell can I not take all this kind of PDF curriculum, convert it to audio, and then interact with it?
Yeah.
Not passive listening, but literally interact with the stuff. And again, this is, it's kind of the phrase I used to use when I was in Iraq, when I was pissed off. I'm like, let me get this straight. We got rovers on Mars.
Yeah.
We're getting images from rovers on Mars, and I can't do this. And I'm sitting there in standstill traffic in DC, looking at all of these knowledge workers, burning productivity, man. And we are living and competing in an information economy. Period. The raw material for our economy is not steel. It's not petroleum. It's information, man.
Data.
Period. And if I'm some super busy executive or a 4-star general or whatever the hell, and this is just one little example. Somebody sends me a PDF, and I get in my car, something that happens every day, and I'm dead in the water to really interface with that information. It's insane, man. It's a small thing, but it's kind of like, it's this classic founder, hey man, I'm solving my own pain point, and you become obsessed with it. I mean, and I've essentially, my true belief is the human information, this like human information interface is completely, and actually the Space Force, so we're doing some, business with DoD. The Space Force has this great term for it in this document they're releasing. It's industrial age translations of information. that need to change, man.
That's very accurate description.
Yeah. So anyway, to your question,
COVID kind of like that was one of the pros that came out of COVID
sure.
was that translation, headway apps, all these.
It's changing. And I think ChatGPT, I used to say the kind of thing I would say is, listen, man, there's a difference between having access to information and being able to harness information. And chat, you're finally starting there. You're showing people now what that means.
Yeah.
But that's still in its infancy, man. There's so many other things. And again, it's about American competitiveness. You've got 1 billion plus Chinese people crunching information, man.
Constantly.
At some point, that's going to catch up to us if we don't build in these efficiencies and stuff. Anyway, so my point to your question was, I transitioned well because I basically, and you can probably pick this up, I'm a little bit obsessed about it now, and I've had this kind of drive.
You found a purpose. That's it.
And that's true.
And reestablishing that purpose, that is the baseline, the fundamentals, breaking it all down. What every person struggling with post-traumatic stress is going through is, who am I? What am I going to do? And that is it. It's the sense of purpose. So establishing that sense of purpose and giving you a drive, giving you a direction has helped you overcome.
For sure.
Helps you separate your identity from what you did in the past versus what you're going to do in the future now, too.
Resume items versus, and versus identity. And we see this all the time, too, is you are not your military service. And that was echoed to me in the hospital countless times is, who you are is not your injury. And that's what what I say all the time as an example of, no, it might have established what direction I went with my life and what tools I've learned along the way to help me overcome that. But at the end of the day, it's identity versus purpose.
Yeah.
No, and the question remains is the guys who do get to that 20-year mark and they are beat down and they don't have a plan after exit, how do you incentivize them, or how do you motivate them in order to do what you did? Find something to lock yourself into, basically what Dave and I did. When we got out, we poured ourselves into something that we found interest in, and it gave us purpose. But there's a lot of guys who hit that 20-year mark, or not even that 20-year mark, and they are beat down and demoralized, and they can't make that decision, or they can't find that purpose.
It's tough because, listen, I mean, at that point, you've got a family. You've got, in many instances, you've got, other agencies that are kind of, recruiting you to give you a bunch of money to go do the same thing. So it's, you've got these obligations that you want to fulfill, and sometimes you've just got to take kind of the best thing that comes at you to kind of meet those. I'm talking family obligations stuff. So it's tough to really say, hey man, I'm going to get out and I'm going to roll the dice. Well, you're rolling the dice for your family and stuff. So it's a quandary. I mean, it's tough.
Two, to look at the fact that when you hit professionalism or expert level on anything, you kind of have a tendency to not want to go back to the drawing board.
That's true.
We want to utilize the skills we have. And unfortunately, in the special operations world, there's not a lot of job-related transition for that. It's, of course, you got the plethora of skills, but I think that's a huge thing too, is teaching old dogs new tricks, right?
It is, yeah. Now, the problem with kind of the special operations crowd, when you come out, you've got incredible skills and talents and things that you can give, but you're also what I would kind of call, you're really a bit of a generalist. I mean, you have no translatable skills, and that was kind of my problem when I started the company. I was a generalist, man. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I really had to educate myself.
That makes the best business owners, though. Yeah, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Think outside the box.
Yeah, for sure.
Can't put any one hat on. You got to put them all on.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's so coming out as a journalist, you're right. I mean, 20 years or whatever to kind of start from square one. And again, it's part of the point. I think is it's like you may have kids getting ready to go into college. You've got obligations that may force you to go down a path that is less than optimal for you. Yeah.
So let's talk about your solution. Let's talk about your business, and you obviously saw a pain point that you wanted to address, and you've built today to be an incredible platform.
Yeah.
So what is that platform, and what do you do?
What's it called? Yeah.
Yeah. So INFLO is the platform. And then kind of my, I guess my elevator pitch is we integrate audio into professional workflows. So, Army, Air Force are using it kind of in the professional military education realm, Space Force. We're looking really good with some upcoming contracts there. And then, like I said, some of the biggest global banks in the world are using it. So essentially, there's all these organizations that have a ton of incredibly valuable content that they need their people to consume for one reason or another. And there's just all these barriers to getting it done. And one of the solutions we came up with is, you've got to kind of unlock it from behind the screen. So you've got to. So what we've done is, I'll take the banks as kind of an example. They spend billions of dollars a year producing this financial research. Billions of dollars. And about 80% of it across the industry is never read. And you've got these busy executives in New York,
sure.
They're commuting all this. So kind of our search, our search engine was, hey, let us come in, let us convert it, to audio and let these people that are commuting or doing or whatever, trying to essentially convert some of their dead time into productive time.
Okay.
So the two things we do really is, to use a bad startup term, kind of our secret sauce is what we do to the text to speech up front. We plug into Amazon, their text to speech, but then we do some pretty interesting stuff on top of that makes it much more enjoyable to listen to around some of the professional jargon, that sort of thing. We've built some AI that makes it, sound less painful when it comes out.
A little bit more engaging.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we make it interactive. Like I said, countless stories of talking to people. Hey, I'm listening to this podcast and great points made. And I do a screen capture. Or I pull out my notebook. I'm like, again, it's like my whole Rovers on Mars. Seriously?
Yeah.
You're listening to an audio book or a podcast and you can't capture. So what we do is we allow people, hey, I'm listening to something in an hour-long PDF podcast, 8 or 10 key points that are made. You can instantly capture them, tap the screen, say, hey, use voice, squeeze your buds. You capture those key points. And then if it's in a PDF, they're actually highlighted back in the document, and then they're aggregated into a note file that you can share and collaborate. So it's a super efficient way to interact with content away from a screen. But it's not audio only. It's the key thing is this powerful relationship between kind of the originating document and the audio file. And it just really opens up a whole new world of kind of productivity. But, and I've been saying this for years, I still think the biggest thing is it's a quality of life play, man. Does anybody know anybody that wants more screen time, that wants to be sitting sedentary?
Nope.
In their home office, staring at, no, man.
Not at all.
And that was a big thing when, Audible came out.
Yeah.
For me is my reading went up exponentially. It's because you have, the 20 minutes to the gym and back, all this time that you could be taking, educating yourself. And like you said, I could imagine that pain point bi-weekly, 5 hours of commute time. That's 10 hours of education.
It's absurd. Yeah. I mean, it's again, it's not like we're in the pre-industrial kind of age where we're all, physical laborers.
Yeah.
We are competing on information, man.
Yeah. Constantly.
All of us.
Yeah.
And again, this human information interface is so bad considering that is the fact. And it's a paradigm, man. We are trapped in this paradigm of productive time equals screen time. And there's so much technology that makes that, it does not have to be the case. Now, am I saying screens are going to go away? Of course not. But you've got to have the ability to kind of be up and moving around and getting things done on the go, and then come back to your screen, and it's all sitting there for you, man.
Yep, waiting.
It is so obvious to me.
Yeah, and especially, I travel just so often.
Yeah.
And, all that time walking through the airport, all that time waiting for the flights, or getting delayed, getting on a flight, 4-hour flight somewhere. I find that I'm missing days of work.
For sure.
Because who wants to sit there, pay $50 to access the internet, right? And, and then it's shoddy anyway, and do emails. No one wants to do that when left and right Jerry's are looking at you, right? So I think that's a huge aspect too, is being able to educate yourself on the go.
Yeah, for sure, man. And there's So we're actually partnered with Arizona State University on a couple of these things we're doing with DoD, and not a lot of people necessarily know this about ASU, but they've been ranked like #1 in innovation for education like 8 years running by
Wow.
News World. Yeah, so they've built this like juggernaut institution, which again, not a lot of people know, but very well established if you look at it. Anyway, what's interesting is there's these underlying kind of cognitive principles to the feature set we built. There's actually some underlying cognitive principles, like if you get up and change the environment when you're consuming content, there's all these kind of inputs, and there's these anchoring elements that allow you to recall that stuff better when you change your environment. And there's this whole idea of kind of cognitive collaboration and that sort of thing.
Sure.
So there's a lot of, they're quite bullish on the tech. I mean, we're working with some of the top cognitive scientists in the world and I didn't, intuitively I thought it was a great idea, but to really now start to understand there's real learning and cognitive principles that underpin this. I feel real good about what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Is there also an adaptive aspect to this? I imagine for blind people or vision impaired.
Now that always comes up.
Yeah.
And we just haven't, when you're a startup, one of the huge lessons I of course learned early was you can only do one thing, man. You can only talk to one market.
Mm-hmm.
Attack the primary audience first, and then start establishing.
For sure. Yeah. So we'll move in that direction.
We do have a connection for you. Actually, an Army veteran, Lucas Samanier.
Yeah.
Shout out to Lucas. He runs a company that employs entirely blind people. He finds solutions for employment for blind people. He's over in Austin.
Yeah, man.
Army veteran though. He's got a real cool company, but.
There's the network.
Great connection,
again, right? There's the network.
Right. Exactly. And we just met today.
That is what we pride ourselves on as well. Is the dot connector as well. I mean, we've had a lot of people connected to the right places for whatever they need. So that's a great company as well. And I'm sure that he would love to hear a platform such as this.
Yeah, hook us up, man.
Yeah, definitely. That's that network thing. I want to come back to that because it's such a great example. Not to go all the way back to recruitment, but I think it's a great example of the lifelong network that you do have, and you can find instant credibility, or it'll spark a conversation at the very least. Yeah. We had a problem last year, about a year and a half ago now. We have an online store, and we had issues with it feeding into Facebook. And obviously, Facebook being a massive, massive company, can't get anyone on the phone.
I don't care about you.
Customer service is bullshit. Yeah. So I hopped on LinkedIn. I ran a cross-reference between people with a CCAF, Community College of the Air Force degree, who worked at Meta.
Yeah.
Found a list of people, shot him a LinkedIn message like, hey, I'm having this issue. He got back in 5 minutes because he saw, another Air Force guy. Yeah. He said, I'd love to help you, dude. How can I help? We got our problem solved in a day that we've been working on for like months.
Yeah,
just that network.
It's one of the greatest unkept secrets, specifically around kind of entrepreneurship. I mean, it's there's just so many great aspects to it, man.
Yeah, I love it.
And especially those who haven't served as well. Yeah. Like it's not just a two-way street.
Yeah,
you have people who haven't served, and they have that innate sense of service still inside themselves that say, I see myself in you, and I want to work for you.
There's
work with you.
Yeah, there's an incredible amount of, we're fortunate, service and retired service members. There's an incredible amount of goodwill from the American people towards the military. And rightfully so.
Which do you feel that's kind of changing a little lately? It's definitely not what it was.
No, I agree. There's certainly some fringe elements that exert their influence sometimes. I mean, I think. Listen, there's a lot of places where you don't want to necessarily highlight your military service. That's a fact. I mean,
sure,
that's a fact.
That is a fact. Louisiana. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
So no, I mean, I honestly hadn't thought a lot about it. There's certainly. Maybe I think there's still fringe that kind of look down and don't respect. I hope, the two are probably connected. If you've got a lot of people that aren't willing to join the military, you can extrapolate from that there's been a shift in the perception and all that potentially. So
sure.
I think you're probably right. Certainly it's not too far gone. I think we still benefit from a great deal of goodwill from the American people. But
I agree. Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I think people have kind of woken up to it as well. In Vietnam, everyone was upset with the soldiers, right? When the soldiers got home, fuck you. Like, you're the problem, when it wasn't the case. And now I think people are kind of realize that these guys aren't making the decisions. Like, they're being sent places to go do things. So I think there is more support for the individual military member. I don't see that too often anymore myself.
Yeah, no, it's funny you bring that up about making the decisions, and it's just kind of an anecdotal thing. When in the early, kind of taking it back to Afghanistan and kind of 2002, I remember we were linked up with a CCT guy, and they're due to the major kind of muscle movements around the Air Force and stuff, and we're kind of sitting on the bank of some river at night, and he's like, "Hey man, we're going into Iraq," and I'm like, "No way, there's no way we're actually gonna." I know there's a buildup and all that. He's like, "No, it's done." Anyway, so it's, to your point, like, we're not the policymakers, man.
We're just on the receiving end.
Oftentimes you don't even know who you're going after, right? And it's he said, she said, right? At this point, I mean, is it really an IED facilitator?
Those criteria are somewhat malleable.
Especially when you're getting intel from the guy down the street. He's an IED facilitator.
So there's always that question, and I think that goes back to our point of like having trust in your leadership. You got to have trust. If people are especially in today's like individualistic entitled mentality, it is my life and I have to be doing something I believe in completely and full-heartedly.
I mean, it's the whole, you guys are familiar with Simon Sinek or whatever, the whole why. The will to fight, man, is everything. The will to fight is everything. And you contrast what's happened with the Ukrainians and kind of, how they're taking it to the Russians versus, when the U.S. pulled out and the Afghans get overrun, you know, and it's the will to fight, man. And I saw that in U.S. forces as well. I mean, a supremely motivated human being, and this gets to the faith in leaders and that sort of thing, is unstoppable, man. I mean, and if you start to lose that because you have a lack of faith in leadership and all that, if that will to fight kind of dissipates, it's, look at the Russians, man.
Dangerous in combat, obviously. That's a great example.
It doesn't matter how well armed you are at that point or how much technology you have.
You cannot function at your full capacity.
For sure.
Because from a comparative aspect, we were fighting people wearing robes and sandals with simple AKs, not a plane to their name, right? And we were having struggles with that at points.
The will to fight, man. It's, exactly. It can't necessarily be bows and arrows against B-52s. There's got to be some level of parity on the battlefield, but once that is achieved, the will to fight is the decisive element.
Yes.
Well, that's absolutely incredible that you were able to use that military experience and use that to create a platform like INFLO. I mean, pretty great stuff. Where do you see that going in the future?
So we are, listen, we've had some fits and starts, and we've raised some good capital. So I think we're really hitting our stride now. We've chosen to focus on the enterprise. There's a lot more value, that sort of thing. So we're making some strong headway in DoD, and kind of corporate upskilling, training, and then financial services. So I think we'll reinforce those wins. We'll bring on some more capital here. We're actually kind of looking for some now. Anybody out there listening want to write me a big check? Hey, hit me up. Anyway,
we do have a finder's fee if it comes from Medevac. 10% industry standard.
I would expect nonetheless, man. Quasi criminals,
and 10% of a tech company raise is going to be great.
No kidding.
So we'll. My goal is to fundamentally change the way humans interface with information because it is necessary.
I love that. Yeah.
Yep.
And you see this more or less in the corporate government sectors as opposed to, is there any future subscription access to?
There's the big market may be direct to consumer. I mean, again, you've got to choose. Are you going to be a direct-to-consumer company? Or are you going to be enterprise? We chose to focus on the enterprise. The advantage, there's efficiency advantages there. One document serves 10, 20, 100 people. versus one document serves one document in direct to consumer. So we'll move into direct to consumer when the time is right. It's a massive market for us.
Yeah.
There's a huge need. You've got all these kind of freelancers and that sort of thing. So yeah, absolutely. It's just the time isn't right.
Yeah, and you've also mentioned this a couple times too. Is it seems to me like you have a plan in place for integrating AI into your business as well.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I think these large language models are a game changer, but they still, I think who's going to win is whoever has that in the right ecosystem. And we've got a direct investment from the Alexa Fund, Amazon, AWS. So they've got some interesting stuff going on. Arizona State's another one that made a direct investment in us, and they've got some very interesting large language model capabilities they're going through in education. So, yeah, that's I actually talk about our platform. It's actually a great term that I stole from the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is intellectual overmatch. There was a great in 2020, 21. All the Joint Chiefs signed this document around PME, professional military education. Like, hey, we spent the last decade or two kind of, going against, kind of terrorists in the Middle East and that sort of thing. It's a different ball game now. We're coming out of those wars and we're going against kind of great power competition, China, Russia, that sort of thing. We need senior leaders that can achieve intellectual overmatch against the adversary on the battlefield because at some level they've achieved kind of technology parity and that sort of thing. We need people that can outthink. Bring all elements of national power to bear on the battlefield, which is 100% right. Great term, man. I've completely hijacked it from them. And I've kind of defined it. I mean, where it wasn't really well defined, we've kind of at INFLO defined this intellectual overmatch is really a Venn diagram of kind of, the classic three circles. Kind of on the bottom left is what I call productivity in motion, particularly for the military. You cannot have people sitting on their ass in front of a screen to professionalize themselves. It's a population that's addicted to physical exercise, always commuting, always on the go. You cannot make them sit in front of a screen if you want to achieve intellectual overmatch, you've got to have productivity motion, it's called. Kind of the second thing is powerful collaboration. Everybody wants critical thinkers, get together in these PME schools and really challenge each other's ideas. Well, you've got to be able to effectively exchange thoughts, ideas, information without all this ridiculous friction that is email and all this crap. So that's kind of the second. And then the third really is AI workflows. So it's when you bring those three elements together, that kind of overlapping center, that is intellectual overmatch. May not be everything, but I really believe those are kind of the three things you've got to have at an organizational level to really dominate, your competition in innovation, in skills, and that sort of thing. And again, there's so much value left on the table due to the way we consume information right now. What was your question? I got obsessed there.
I think you nailed it.
Okay.
I think you nailed it. Implementing AI into your company. I think that those are great key factors for any company as well. And what you created is great. So you've mentioned competition. Are you as a solution provider, you're kind of the first to think of it. We've done it in different ways, translating text, right? We said that headway, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But what sets you apart from others? I could say right away is GovCon, right? It's just being in the military as well. But yeah, what are you forecasting for that as far as other people coming up with these ideas?
Yeah, listen, I mean, it's I think as I tell investors, and we're creating a future that's inevitable, without question, man. I mean, we may be way ahead of people right now, but other people will come into the game. Now, again, we're doing some pretty interesting stuff, pre-processing the document that I'm not going to get into.
Okay.
I think is going to be kind of a differentiator, because at the end of the day, man, the quality of the audio is everything. If you have a bad listening experience, all the interactivity and the collaboration ain't going to happen because nobody's going to listen to it. So you've really got to, and again, we've built some tech on top of some of the synthetic voices from Amazon that makes us pretty unique. The second thing is the collaboration that people may come in and do. But I do believe our enterprise focus, particularly DoD, kind of the classic thing you hear in startups is you've got to have an unfair advantage. My unfair advantage is DoD. It's our network. So to get in that, and we're going to grow from there. And then the other thing is, there's these dynamics around network effects and stuff. Once you get established, and these people, it's like Facebook. Is everybody going to kind of wholesale jump off of Facebook and go start up their network of friends? It's tough. Once you get established, and you create these network effects where people are collaborating in documents and stuff. Once you get that going, it's hard for somebody to come in and knock you out.
Yeah.
So
same thing for us is that DoD background is, there is apparel companies that are a dime a dozen out there. Yeah. What sets us aside is that we're GovCon, and we have relationships with all the way up to the Joint Chiefs. So that's what helps me sleep at night, at least.
Man. And a lot of it's brand too, man. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. Look,
brand is
and
brand.
My daughter, you look at Apple. Apple. But you talk about an allegiance when somebody picks up an iPhone, that they feel something. I mean, one of my favorite podcasts is by one of the guys that built the iPod. It's called The Power of Design, and it's his point was, hey, to get people to buy stuff, 50% of it's emotional, 50% of it's kind of utilitarian or whatever. And I think we're building a great brand, and I think that matters, man. It's
community.
Yeah.
Creating a community is really important, and that's something that the military is so prevalent at, as well. So where can we find you?
So where can you find www.goinflo.com. No W on inflow. We couldn't afford the W.
So FLO.
FLO, yep. To start, and then again, if somebody kind of wants to contact me directly or whatever, info@goinflo.com. I'll check that. So that's
LinkedIn, I'm sure.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. I'll be honest. I chose, and I've kind of stayed off that, but I'm we're to the point now where I've really got to.
You got to be on it. Yeah.
No, I've got to.
I think we talk about the same thing. Had that conversation last year. Is that it's like it's time to grow up from Instagram to LinkedIn.
And we'll we've been heads down. We've had 4 or 5 kind of blue chip, massive first customers, and that was my focus, man. I was not interested in kind of any other inbound leads or whatever. We had to really execute against these things.
Sure.
So that's why we really wasn't on LinkedIn. But yeah, I mean, we're to the point now where you'll find me by the time this thing hits the airwaves. Yeah, we'll be there.
Got it. CD.
Before we close out, though, you did tell me you had a Medevac story. This is the Medevac podcast.
I actually have 2.
You have 2.
How much time do we have?
All the time in the world, brother.
So I've got another great kind of Ranger story that's a bit of the Ranger jackassery that, or I've got a kind of a personal one. So let me tell the Ranger one.
Let's do it.
We'll jump back into the Ranger. So so for people that have never obviously spent any time in the regiment, this is quintessential kind of classic Ranger day in the life. So I'm a new private. And another new private, and I don't know what the statute of limitations is on this, so this may or may not be an alias. We'll call him Billy.
Perfect.
So, Billy shows up, and he's not super physically fit, and which is a problem in its own
Ranger.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah. Problem in its own right. It's an even bigger
is that a
problem.
Smart Ranger? Is that what that is?
Cupcake Ranger.
Cupcake Ranger.
It's an even bigger problem when your squad leader is the fastest guy in the battalion.
Oh no,
Yeah. So
of course.
Yeah, and we'll just call him Doug. So Doug's favorite thing to do every morning, the deal. You line up in formation, and then you face right, you march out, and then 275. Do they still do the horn or whatever? Is that still a thing? You run the horn or not really? Probably not.
No.
Okay.
They destroyed everything.
Yeah.
And even ripped the ropes down.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So
someone
back
fell
then,
and broke their back. So
that's not good. Yeah.
Don't do that.
I have another story about that, but I won't get into it. When I was in RIP, anyway. So Doug, we'd kind of go, face right, kind of march out, and then we would go from a standstill to dead sprint. I mean, every day. I'm like, have you heard of this thing called recovery?
Yeah.
Anyway, so inevitably Billy would fall out. At some point. There's months and months of this. So we do this, and you know the deal. Hey, so we're going on this run. Billy starts to fall out, and you get the 2 Ranger team leaders. All right. Billy's just been shot. Chris, pick him up, put him on your back. I'm like, you
Thanks,
so
Chris.
So we're carrying him, and that, these team leaders are. He's like, I don't feel good, and they're like, yeah, because you're fat. So this sort of thing, and he wasn't fat, but he wasn't in great shape. Anyway, so it's like a 6-mile run. He's at one point the squad leader tackles him into the ditch, and I'm thinking, well, Billy probably is enjoying this because he's getting some rest. So they literally push him all the way down, all the way back, and then we get into the team room, and it's like, Chris, go grab some chow, and I'm like, oh man, they're gonna give it to Billy. So they continue to smoke him. Mountain climbers, blah blah blah. So that ends. Billy goes to the medic. He's like, hey man, I don't feel good. 1 hour later, he's getting his appendix taken out.
Oh
God.
Yeah. So again, it's like, so you talk about kind of, this is a little bit of a, I guess an extreme example, but it's like, hey man, it ain't touchy-feely. You're going to kind of perform, and anyway, so
yeah.
Got to get through.
I tell Billy, man, it's still the most impressive kind of physical performance I saw in my entire military career. The guy ran like basically 6 miles with essentially a burst appendix or whatever.
Yeah.
It tells you the kind of the power of the Ranger team leader to motivate people. Again, a bit of a silly example. So anyway,
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
that is on par.
it is. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, it is. Well, I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for your time today, Chris. It was a real pleasure getting to talk to you, get to know you.
Is there anything you want to say to the audience before we cut out?
No, man. I guess the only thing I would say is I'm sure you have a wide, kind of diverse audience with some impressive people that touch other impressive people. And I go back to the whole. I would encourage kind of any young people in your life if they're considering it. Man, make the leap, man. Because again, I know of nobody that's ever regretted it.
Make the leap. And 20 years of experience.
Yeah.
That means something. So we thank you for your service and all the work you've done. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and I can't wait to see how INFLO blows up and really gains some traction into helping people educate themselves on the move.
No, appreciate it. Loved it. Really enjoyed it, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Chris Donohoe, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Medevac Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Remember to interact with the video, share it, like it, comment, do the things, and reach out to us. Let us know who you want to talk to or who you want us to talk to, rather. Yes.